Do you want to get started on this training? If so, just go ahead and raise your hand. Terry says yes. AJ says yes. Joel says yes. David says yes. Ashley, JC, Beth, Simeon, Jennifer, John, Simon, Richard, Lauren, Christopher. Wow, y'all are too fast. I've missed some of them, but I'm excited to get started. So here we are in Pro 7, and depending on how you're encoding, it's going to be different. I'm going to go through a few different ways of doing this so that most people will be covered. I know that probably the most popular way of live streaming is with a phone. And you saw that if you were in the ProPresenter users group, I actually live streamed that I was getting ready for this from my phone. And that's a perfectly acceptable way to do it, especially now. If you don't have other equipment, then that can work. But if you only have a phone, you might think that you have no way of getting video into video from ProPresenter into a phone. But that's not totally true. So if you only have a phone, the first thing I'm going to suggest to you is you could use Switcher Studio. Switcher Studio is an app that is made just outside of Louisville, Kentucky, which is actually my hometown. And it enables you to have multiple iPhones as cameras and along with iPads, and you can switch between them. And you can get the output of a computer into this same system. So that's the first thing to do. They have an app called Switcher Cast that basically, let me just bring it up just to show you. It's very minimal. But what happens when you have Switcher Cast on is it allows you to select between different displays or webcams to bring into the Switcher Studio app. So I was just talking to one of the members of my Church Tech U community, and this is what she's using at her church. And she said, well, can I take the output of ProPresenter and bring that in? And so, yes, you can. You just download this little app, and I think they've got a Windows version and a Mac version. I'm on a Mac. So you select which display, let's say it was this one, and this is broadcasting. It has to be on the same wireless network, but it's broadcasting over the network, and then I can select it in Switcher Studio. And while it doesn't allow you to do transparency, it does have a picture-in-picture function. So you could, during the message, for example, you could do full screen of the pastor and do a picture-in-picture of the sermon notes. Then when the slide changes, go full screen with the sermon notes. And then after long enough for people to read it and all, you can go back to a picture-in-picture. So that's a possibility. You could also do the reverse for worship, maybe, is have the words where people could see them all the time since they're changing continuously, and have the worship team, or maybe it's just a worship leader on a guitar or keyboard or whatever, in the lower right-hand corner or left-hand corner, what have you. So that's the first thing that I'd suggest as a possibility for you. After using phones and tablets, the next most common thing is OBS, Open Broadcaster Studio, or Open Broadcaster Software. It's referred to both ways. And I actually have that up and running right now. So let me drag it over and you can see my face there. So it's actually running my Canon T3i. Let me take you just a second to show you what's doing that, just because some of you may not know that this is possible. So I have a piece of software called Camera Live. I'm going to drag that over here. And all that is with the USB connection, it tricks the Canon software into sending the video over that USB connection. This is a Mac product. There is a PC uh, piece of software that's I'm blanking on at the moment that can do that. The problem with this, though, is it sends it out as Siphon. And Siphon is a protocol that is Mac only that basically takes screenshots and sends that to other software. So in this case, what I'm using is I'm using it as a Siphon source in OBS. And I've also got my microphone here, from my iMic, which is a USB audio interface. It's about the cheapest audio interface you can get. So I've got that as well, but that's how I can do that. And I'm also bringing it into Zoom by using another free piece of software called CamTwist. So let me bring CamTwist over. So I've selected Siphon because that's what Camera Live expects. And then I can go down here and select Camera Live from that. You probably saw my camera blink on the live stream because this is how I'm getting it into Zoom. So I could theoretically, if your church is using Zoom, you could use CamTwist to take a Siphon out of ProPresenter and send that into Zoom, just like I'm doing. But back to OBS, which probably most people start with. OBS is encoder software. That's one of the important pieces of live streaming. So you need a camera or some sort of video source to live stream video. That makes sense. Then you need to send it somewhere. If you're using a phone, it all happens inside the app. If you're using a computer, there's software that does that. Now that software might be in the web browser and it might be going to Facebook, for example, or YouTube or any other live streaming host, or it might stop before it goes there. It might go to OBS, Open Broadcaster Software. So to get ProPresenter in there, what we're going to need to do is decide first, is OBS on the same machine? If OBS is on the same machine, second is, are they both running on a Mac or a Windows computer? So on a Mac, we can do Siphon, which I mentioned is Windows only. And so let's go to Screens, Configure Screens. So now I'm going to add a audience screen. You'll notice that I had new NDI and new Siphon. I'm going to do new Siphon. Let's do a 720p Siphon screen. Having done that, that is basically all I need to do to send this out over to OBS. Make sure this is unchecked. If it's checked, then you won't get a transparent background. You'll get a solid, whatever color this is, background. So that's an important piece of the puzzle. So going back over to OBS, let me show you how to add that in. So again, I have my audio, I have my camera. Now let me add in a new source for this scene, and I'm going to select Siphon Client. Now I select that. Let's give it a name so that it makes sense to us. I'm just going to call it Pro 7 Siphon. Click OK. And now I need to select the source. So I'm going to do ProPresenter Siphon 1. Now you'll notice that this has a black background. That's because I don't have Allow Transparency checked. So I'm going to select that. Once I do that, click OK. you'll see that you can see me waving, you can see me talking, and I've got this text. And notice this isn't just the white letters. I've also put a black stroke. And you'll notice that this is the unregistered version of Pro 7 because I'm not really presenting here. I'm just teaching you how to use it. So this is really neat. And I could absolutely reformat this so that it's a lower third. I just picked a full screen graphic, but that gives you an idea of what you could do if OBS is on the same machine running at the same time as ProPresenter 7. But what if it's on a different computer? Or what if it's on Windows? Well, let me get rid of that, and we're going to go through a different way to do this. So instead of Siphon, if this was on Windows or if it was on a different computer, we're going to add an NDI screen, new NDI. Let me add that as 720p again, 5994, that's fine. So once I do that, you'll notice screen color is still not checked, but I've got a new tab down here that says alpha key. In the Siphon output, it wasn't there. By default, if there's no background color, it's gonna send transparency. With this though, I need to tell it alpha key says send a transparent background. It's actually more information to send less. So now I have enabled the alpha key, so that enables sending transparent information to another computer or in Windows from Pro 7 into OBS. So to add that, first I will need to download a plugin for OBS. There's an NDI plugin, and I'll do a search for that a little bit later and share the link. Once you've done that, then you can click plus and NDI source. So let's call this Pro 7 NDI, just because that makes sense to me. Add that, and now I need to find the NDI source. Well, there's only one here because I'm only sending one. And let's see here. Fix alpha blending. Let's go ahead and select OK for that and do that. And you'll notice that once again, I've got words transparent over my live video. So now I can send that to Facebook, YouTube, my live streaming host, what have you. So that's another way to do it. If you don't need a solid background, and I mean, you don't need a transparent background, you could, instead of doing NDI, you could capture the output of ProPresenter. So you could capture the output of from window capture. We could call this ProPresenter screen. You'll forgive that I mistyped the capitalization. Can click OK there, and then I can select any window that I want, and so I would look for the ProPresenter output. That will only work on the same computer because it's looking for stuff on that computer, but that's another way to do it as well. So that is some of the basic stuff on how to send it to OBS if you want to. But what if your capture method doesn't allow transparency? Is there a way to send, say, a signal with Chroma key and have that. Well, yeah, you could have another output. Let's say, let's go into screens and edit looks. And I have, let me actually make this one live. So I've added a screen that I call Sling Studio. And the reason for that is I have a Sling Studio. You might have seen a recent tutorial I did, and it doesn't allow transparency. It just has a single HDMI port that can go in, or you can use a wireless camera link via HDMI to go in. And so really my only choices are Chroma key, which is allows me to remove a single color and leave both black and white, which is in general what I prefer to do, and luma key, which removes either bright information or dark information, and you can change which it does. But the downside of doing that is if someone's wearing white and you put white text over them, or someone's wearing black and you put black text over them, then those will blend together, making it illegible. So I like to recommend Chroma key anytime you can. So what I've done here, I mean, you saw that I had a lot of screens, is right here under presentation, I have created a theme, which is a Chroma key theme. So we can see a preview of it down here. It's got that Chroma key green, which is, in the video world, we have three primary colors: red, green, and blue. And I have turned down red to 0, I've turned down blue to 0, and I've turned up green all the way to 100% to get that color. So that is what I have. That is the Sling screen. So if I preview this, you can see the Sling Studio screen is Chroma key. So I went into Sling Studio, having connected that output directly to it, and then I use the eyedropper tool to select this screen, and then I tweak the tolerance just a little bit so that I could only have this. And again, I could have just as easily formatted this for a lower third as this full screen. I just didn't do that. So that's some of the basic ways that we could do that. You could also, so if we go to one of the other screens, let's say this one, the other way to key information is called a luma key. I touched on that earlier. So, and by the way, OBS can do a luma key as well as a chroma key. So if you, for one reason or another, don't want to do the transparency directly, or maybe you can't for one reason or the other, you can put a filter on things. So not cam twist, where are you, OBS? I didn't quit you, did I? Maybe I did. Let me see if, yeah, I think I might have. So let me restart OBS. I get going and I do stuff without even thinking about it sometimes. So, yep, there we are. So if I were to here, let me get rid of this. So let me tweak these settings, and actually I want to do that in ProPresenter. So I'm going to go into ProPresenter and configure screens. If for some reason I was sending it NDI, let's say that my network just cannot handle me sending with transparency. So what I can do is, I think it was this screen. Yep. So in Alpha Key, I'm going to disable that. And when we go into OBS, we find that, let me wait until the logo goes away. Trying to remember where the filters are. It's been a while. Yep, there we go. Right click, filters. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a filter to this. So I could do a color key or I could do a chroma key. Since I'm removing black, oops, I selected the wrong one. Since I'm removing black, I am going to do a luma key. So call that. And once I've removed that, you can see as soon as this ProPresenter logo goes away, you can see that it's not perfect, but without even tweaking any of the settings, if I tweak it just a bit, it gets a lot better. So if you were going over NDI, you didn't have the bandwidth, or you were in Pro 6, let's say you're watching this just hoping you'd pick up something. You're in Pro 6 for Windows, so you don't have the opportunity to send it out with Siphon, and you're sending that over to OBS, or let's say you're doing a screen capture, and you could add that filter to it to remove the black, leaving only the white, and try and tweak that so that it isn't too bad. But you can see some of the black because I didn't turn it all the way up. So this is an acceptable solution for doing that as well. So let me get out of that and bring OBS over to the side. So, yep, looks like someone already pasted the link for the OBS for NDI, or NDI for OBS plugin in the chat. So thank you, John, for doing that. Saves me the moment to do the search. So that's another way to do that. I could have just as easily sent chroma key and used the chroma key filter in OBS to do that. But in that case, I used the luma key filter. So those are some of your basic options. If you have a video switcher, which I'm a big fan of, I've actually got an ATEM Television Studio HD, and you've got the budget, because what I'm about to suggest is not cheap. I think the setup that I'm going to recommend is about $750. Let's see if this comes up. Yes, okay, it did. Then you can use, on the ATEM Television Studio HD, you could do an alpha channel. So going back into ProPresenter, screens, configure screens. I don't have it hooked up right now, but I have a Decklink Duo where two of the outputs are married together. That's something you do in the Blackmagic software. And I have that added in here as a screen, 1080p screen. And once again, we see our alpha key choice here. I can select that, select external key, tweak the blend so that it works well. With a hardware switcher, you need two connections, the key and the fill. The fill is just normal. So if you looked at the fill signal, it would look just like this here in ProPresenter. But if you looked at the key signal, it would have a very similar background, but the background would be everywhere that it's black, the switcher says, okay, in that other signal, I'm going to remove that. Everywhere that it's white, it says, okay, in that other signal, keep that, make that fully opaque. But it adds a third dimension, and that is translucency. So if something is very dark gray, you can just barely see it in the main signal. If something is very light gray, almost white, you can just barely see through it in the final signal. So you have, and everything in between. So you have a lot more dynamics to work with. If you're watching television, you might notice that sometimes their lower thirds like slowly fade out or something like that. And that is an alpha channel at work, that they're using that information to slowly dissolve between the signals. So you have the ability to use all the colors that you can imagine, and um, opaque, transparent, and translucent in the middle. So that's how you do that. Let me show you how that looks in the ATEM Television Studio HD. I've got this set up in my downstream keys, more specifically downstream key 1. So I'm going to go down to that. And I have these plugged into, I haven't renamed them, but it's camera 8 and camera 7. Those are the two B and C connections on the ATEM Television Studio HD. And I selected pre-multiplied key. And now, anytime I do this, it will dissolve in that key. Anytime I click that, it will take it instantaneously like a cut. Or if I click this, then as I make transitions over here in the main part of the switcher, this is the software interface. The hardware box is under my desk. Anytime let's say I do cut here, then that makes this live at the same time as it transitions over here. And once it's here, I could undo the tie, and then it will stay up as often as I'm switching between sources. So something else for you to consider, then you could come out of the ATEM Television Studio HD into a computer with a capture card and use OBS, or you could come into a hardware encoder that doesn't even need a computer. It does all the calculations on its own. So that's another way to do that. So I know I'm probably, it sounds a little like an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation with all the techno babble that I'm sharing. It's my goal not to talk above people's heads and not to talk down to people either, but sometimes it's a tight rope to walk. So I admit that I might not have done it. So make sure that you put in any questions that you want in the Q&A box. It looks like we've got several in here. I'm going to talk about something real quick, and then I'm going to come back and answer all the questions that you have. So if you haven't put them in there, go ahead. I know that there are a couple in the chat box that I'll try and get unless people are interacting and I miss them. So if you want to copy and paste that over there, that would be good. So let me go and show you this first off. Well, I'm going to leave that up just in case. And let's go here. So this is the back end of Church Tech U, my online church tech training program. Um, and this is all the courses that are included. So that's the Church Tech U course, but it includes all these others. So I've got a course for ProPresenter, choosing what hardware you need depending on how you're using it. If you're new to video production, this is all about making pre-recorded stuff. And I'm adding some live production elements. Not that we necessarily need that as much right now, because a whole lot of stuff is being pre-recorded, but I'm adding that as well. Troubleshooting. If you've got problems, I did tech support for a whole house audio video company for a few years. And so this course is all about the techniques I use to get down to the problem, even though I was just talking on the phone to technicians. So we'll talk about that. Of course, I've got seamless HD video loops that are included, a course for creating in Pro 6, but I've also got a live streaming course for Pro 6, and I've been doing the Pro 7 live or Pro 7 creation course. I've got all of that pre-recorded for people to go through, and a live course that I just restarted again. I went through like an hour a week for the last 11, 12 weeks since ProPresenter was announced. Like it was announced, I'd been a beta tester since October. So as soon as it was announced, I rolled out a live online class to my people in Church Tech U. So let me show you some behind the scenes stuff. This is the Pro 6 for live streaming course, and I cover similar content in the live Pro 7 class. So I talk about alpha key, multi-screen, um, Chroma and luma keys, which I covered a little bit. This is my live streaming course that's also including. So I talk not only about the technical stuff, but some of the mindset stuff that you need to know when you're live streaming, like who's in charge, what people do you need ideally, things like that. Different encoders, like I worked with the Boxcaster from Boxcast. I've actually got a little bit of a collection of live streaming gear here. And this is Video School 101, where I talk about production, the stages of production, pre-production, cameras, lighting, sound, production, etc. And this is all included in, I have a Church Tech U group for my people. And so I'm not going to actually talk about this, the answer to Becky's question here, because YouTube won't let me, and I want to put this video on YouTube later, but I can talk to her about YouTube videos. Then this is Norma asked me about Switcher Studio, and I told her some of the same stuff that I told you, in addition to directing her to a tutorial that I did. So there's a lot of people here, they have questions. It's a smaller community, so I can get to all the questions, and so that's a nice, valuable piece of the puzzle too. And right now, because we're going through this crisis and we're in the middle of Holy Week, I decided to do something I've never done before, and that is offer a 2-month free trial. So if you're at all interested in any of this, if you'd like to join me on weekly trainings for ProPresenter, weekly hangouts where I answer questions that people have. One of my people, she goes to a very traditional church, but they've got ProPresenter 6. So she's really their only tech person, but she's a retired school teacher and she's not married. So she doesn't have a lot of interaction with people right now because we're all kind of quarantined. And she was telling me today, because I had one of these live hangouts, just how nice it is to see another person's face and hear another person's voice. She's been talking to her dog, who thankfully isn't talking back yet, but is doing that. So If that's interesting to you, you can get there through churchtechu.com, which redirects to this page. And I'm only offering this 2-month free thing because it's actually a little crazy that I'd give you just 2 months full access to everything. But I'm only offering that for a few more days. And so this is some of the classes that I've showed you before, and this is where you scroll down and decide if you want to join the monthly, which is only $49.97 for the entire church campus if you're a single campus church, or you want to go to the yearly one where, in addition to the 2 free months before I charge you, it's only 10 times this, so that's like another 2 free months. And if you're a multi-site church, I know there aren't as many of those, but I didn't want, like Life Church with 20 bazillion multi-site churches to get it for the same price as just a regular single campus church. So I do have a multi-site one. But if you've got 2 campuses, that's basically the same price as getting a yearly for each of those. And if you have 3, it's still that same price. You still get that. And I do take purchase orders as well. So if you find that interesting at all, by all means, go to churchtechu.com. I'm going to type that in the chat here. And if not, that's cool too. Oh, by the way, I'm not the cable company. So if you try it, you say, hey, this isn't for me, or after the 2 months, you say, hey, I learned all I need to know, just email me, or in the monthly thing that comes to you, click cancel. Either way, and you'll owe nothing. I'm not going to like hound you like the cable company does or anything like that. So that's something else I wanted to make clear. I'm really okay if this is just a gift to your church. But since Jesus and the Apostle Paul did both say that the worker is worth his wages, I am charging for it because it's how I make my living. And I've also found that people tend to actually do stuff. I've tried to give it away on a couple of occasions to churches, and when I give it away to churches and they don't pay ever, they also don't use it ever. So it actually helps you to be motivated to use it. So we've got some questions here, and I'm going to minimize this and go through the questions. So Kristen asked, hi, is NDI a device or built in? NDI is short for Network Digital Interface, similar to SDI, Serial Digital Interface. It's a software protocol created by NewTek, the people that make the TriCaster, and it is built into ProPresenter. Built into ProPresenter 7, that is. If you had the SDI module in ProPresenter 6, it would come with that, but it's built into ProPresenter 7, both the Windows and the Mac version of that. So you don't need to download anything to send NDI out of ProPresenter 7. But depending on where you're receiving it, you might need to download a plugin, or it might be just built in. Different software is different. Some software can't use it at all, but other software can. So just have to specify based on what that is. There's a company called Boinks that makes Mimo Live, and that's a Mac only piece of software, and they don't do Siphon, but they do NDI, and that's built in. So I've got a couple of tutorials I haven't edited yet that are going to be on how to use that software. So I'm going to answer that. Done. Okay. An anonymous person, will this broadcast be available for replay in the end? Yes. I like to trim off the beginning and end, and so far I haven't had any problems or anything that would make the editing too complex. So hopefully I can get that up today, tomorrow, sometime real soon. And since you registered for this, I'll send you a replay, and I'll try and post that on the ProPresenter users group as well. Okay, Kristen again. With green and all the other options, what would you recommend for a short clip for YouTube playing during live? That's actually not a question that I can answer on this, because I want to show this on YouTube, and they don't take kindly to me talking about YouTube videos. So I will include that in the email that I send you. Let me leave that up so that I remember to answer that. Aaron asks, I haven't played around with OBS as much yet. Does the vertical stack order determine what is in the forefront? Yes, it does. So let me bring OBS over here, and I'll show you that. So right now I've got NDI on the top. So think of this as you're looking top down, and these sources are showing from the side. If I select that and move it down, notice we can't see it anymore. It's still there. The eye is still showing, now it's hidden, now it's showing. So why can't I see it? It's because it's underneath the camera source. When I move it up, we can see it again. So the layer order does affect that. So answer that and slide that over. Okay, Ashley Bonds. I'm running one computer, one camera, and through Boxcast to the stream. I want to do lower thirds. I don't have anything extra. Is it possible? I'm not a video person, just the design person that has been thrust into this role. I call it my Corona blessing, hashtag Corona blessing. Learning on the fly, absolutely. So probably what I would do if I were you is I would add it into ProPresenter. So if we go down here to Pro 7, we have video inputs. So let's see here, see if I can remember which one it is. I think it's this one. Maybe it's this one. Let me go into preferences and tweak that, because I think that oh, I see it. Let's try this. Let's see here. Okay, I only have the live input on screen 2 and 3, so that would be why. Let me go to screen 2. Okay, so here I am. Basically, I took the live input. I'm using Cam Twist again because that's what I'm sending to OBS or Zoom. I've got too many live streaming things going on right now. So I've got that behind everything. And so I can send this output as an output into a Boxcaster. And that's how I could do that. I would, of course, want to reformat that so it's at a lower third area instead of covering up my mouth. That's no good. But that's probably how I would do it. If you have a pre-recorded video, by the way, let's say that you pre-recorded worship and the pastor, but you haven't put in the lyrics, you haven't put in sermon notes, this is another way that you could do it, is you could add it as a background video, and this is just a still image, but let me actually clear that background because that's chugging on my machine. So imagine that this is a pre-recorded video. I could have the pre-recorded video of worship and everything, and just go through lyrics just as I normally would, and have that work that way. ProPresenter 7 does have one thing. Well, it has a couple of things that weren't in ProPresenter 6, and one of those is it can't record the output. On a Mac, what I would do is I would use Siphon Recorder, which is a little free piece of software. Send the Siphon output with this background, the background video, and record it with Siphon Recorder. And then, so let's say your church service is an hour long. Doing it this way, at the end of an hour, you've got the full thing. If you try and do that with the video editor, it will take you literally hours to type in all the lyrics and stuff. So I really think that doing it through ProPresenter is a better way to do it. If you're on Windows and you don't have Siphon out, the Siphon Viewer, which is a free download from NewTek on their NDI Tools website, has a recorder built in as well. So you could bring up a Siphon monitor on another screen and click record, then run through the service in real time and have a recording that you can upload. So you didn't ask all that, but those were things I meant to cover as well. So, oh wait. Hey Paul, thanks for all you do for us. Well, you're welcome, Jeremy. I really feel like I was made to do this. Like, this is why I exist. How do I create the black bars behind 2 or 4 lines of text when sending out via NDI? Okay, so first you're going to want to go in and add those black bars, because you see in Pro 7 I've got the checkerboard, so everything behind here is transparent according to ProPresenter. So what I'm going to do is right click, edit slide. And then the first step to doing that is I'm going to want to fill this fill this shape with black. So I'm going to select the shape element here. And in shape, I have a fill option. Right now it's set to white. Let's change that to black since you asked about black specifically. I could click on that if I wanted a color other than black. Let's select licorice. And I think that this will work. I did have a problem earlier doing this, but this is how it worked in previous versions of Pro 7. So then you click on text, and lines only is what you want. Yeah, so that might just be in the preview that it's wonky, but it should show just the lines only. So let's go back to show and see if that does it, and it's just the preview that's wonky, or if it's a glitch in this. And if it is a glitch, sure looks like it might be a glitch like this box is. I'll report that to Renewed Vision, because that absolutely should be showing me my lines. I think that's the one that I was on. Let me right click, and I could do Control E. That's what I should have done, because that'll take you into editor, or I could click up there. Might have too many things going on. It seems like it's giving me the rainbow wheel of death. So that's how it's done. That might be a glitch that's showing up in this particular version of Pro 7, which is the latest one, 706, I believe. So, but that's the procedure. Yeah, I've got too many things going. In vain, so that was slide 6. Yep, that was the one. So I think we might have found another glitch. I'll report that to Renewed Vision, since I'm in the beta group chat. Jeremy says, I was late, so you may have discussed so far, so I will review the recording. Well, there will be a recording in all likelihood, unless me having all this stuff up is just wonkifying the recording. AJS, pros and cons of using Pro 7 native video inputs rather than sending the lyrics to OBS over top of the video. If no one is seeing the live video with the inputs on ProPresenter, then it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. OBS is made to do that, and it's a feature of ProPresenter, so it might be a little bit better in OBS. That said, so in general, I'd probably do it in OBS, but if you try it out and it seems to work fine in your context, then it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. By contrast, I tend to not recommend taking a video feed into ProPresenter and then showing it on a screen where people can see that screen and they can see the live person at the same time. I don't like doing that, and the reason for that is because it does introduce some latency, about 3 frames in my testing, which is just enough that some people notice it, but not everyone. Murphy's Law talking, that one person that complains about everything at your church is probably going to be the person that notices it. So that's why I tend not to do it. Using a video switcher, the processing is faster. So I tend to recommend doing that if you can. But if no one's in the congregation, you won't notice that. Okay, Ashley says, I run Pro 6 on a Mac, if that makes a difference. So with Pro 6, there is, in preferences, there under displays, there's a box that says enable Siphon. You want to select that, and then you remember how at the beginning I told you needed to uncheck the background? Well, in Pro 6, there's a little box that says background color. What you need to do in Pro 6 is click on the background color and turn the opacity down to 0. And then you can send that to OBS on the same computer. If you need to send that to OBS on a different computer, there's a piece of software called NDI Siphon, all one word, SYPHON. And it can take the OBS, it can take the Siphon output of ProPresenter 6, and then there's a little checkbox that says enable alpha. You want to check that, and then that will send NDI with transparency over the network, which, if you can, wired gigabit dedicated network is the way to go, and do it that way. So there we go. Those are all the questions I have, and it's been about an hour. If there are other questions, or oh, Julie has a question. We're running Pro 7. Can you show the video audience display on the stage screen? I tried customizing what the stage shows. So if you go into screens and edit layouts under stage here, in addition to all the stuff that was in Pro 6, you can actually, so let me see here. This is probably a good one to look at. Let me zoom in to make that, let's start 75%, back to fit, and see if, yep, there we go. So in any box that I add, which I can do by clicking on this plus sign up here, I can fill that with any number of things in Pro 7. Sorry, I'm going to kill OBS over here to speed things up a bit. So I can click on a shape having added one, and once I do that, it's chugging along because Zoom and Pro 7 don't seem to like each other, as I mentioned. I'm hoping to upgrade my computer, even though it's just a 2017, and I was hoping to get a little bit more out of it. So when you select that, okay, we have fill as an option here, and I've got some different choices. So what I could do instead of a chord chart here is I could fill it with a preview of a screen. So if my audience screen is screen number 1, I could fill it with screen number 1. And notice I've got all the screens available. So I could make a stage display screen that has previews of every single screen. So if I have, let's say I've got that Chroma key screen going to a Sling Studio, and I've got a Siphon screen going to OBS, because maybe they're two different things. You know, one is the Spanish telecast and one is the English one. Then I could have multiple previews, so I can construct my own multi-view in that way with ProPresenter 7, something they added that ProPresenter 6 could not do. So basically, anytime I add a box, I can fill it with whatever I want to. Screen-wise, I can show next, current image, next, etc. So, well, Julie, I'm happy that I answered your question. So let me look at Maxwell's question. He says he's running Pro 6. Is it possible to run OBS and Pro 6 together and have a camera from ATEM injected to Pro 6 without delay? The injecting into Pro 6 is what will cause the delay of at least 3 frames. So I was talking about that earlier. What I would do is, if you have an ATEM that's a Blackmagic switcher, if you have that, I would take the output of ProPresenter and send that into your switcher, and then capture the output of your switcher into OBS and do it that way. And I think that you'll have better luck. You'll have less delay doing it that way. So that's what I would do if I had the ability to. So let's see if there's anything in chat that I've missed. I know someone, let's see here. Jennifer was saying that everything was running really smooth for her for a Zoom presentation. And So my specs on my computer, I will show about this Mac. This is a 2017 13-inch MacBook Pro. That's all getting ready to show up. I just know these things. 8 gigs of RAM. It's got an SSD, 2.3 gigahertz dual core Intel Core i5. So that is what I'm using hardware-wise. My upload speed is, I think it's 20 megabits per second is my upload speed. So my download is, I think, 80 megabits per second. So, and it's a cable modem. It's been working better since I bought my own cable modem than when I was using the Spectrum's cable modem. And it's also been working better since I put the cable modem on a UPS. So there you go. Okay. Jennifer says she has to run out. Thanks again. Thank you for your prayers. We really need them here at the hospital and all hospitals. Oh my gosh, you're on the front lines of this war, Jennifer. Yeah, I'm absolutely praying for you. So Maxwell says, so are you saying ProPresenter live input will not be able to be used without delay, even if we are using Pro 7? Because of how it works, there will always be a small delay. And as I say, most people won't notice that delay, but some will. So I would not use the live input if you're showing it in the same room that people are watching the person live, because it's a small delay, but it's right on the edge of where people start to notice. So if you were going to use it, like once every 6 months for a baptism or once every 3 months for a children's choir, and that was it, go right ahead. But if that's your main plan on doing iMag, I wouldn't do it. I notice the delay. I'm one of those people that notices it. So I would send the output out of ProPresenter into your video switcher every time. Even if they remove the delay a little bit, I would still do it that way, because that's part of what a video switcher is designed to do. Referring to the delay between the live video and the text of the lyrics. Yeah, 3 frames. I think they were telling me, I actually heard this from Brad Weston, who's the owner of Renewed Vision, the original programmer of ProPresenter. I think he said there's 1 frame when it captures the video and 2 frames when it puts it back out. So that's your 3 frames. So, yep, the live video that's being captured in that, and that's an ideal situation, will have about 3 frames of delay. So the lyrics may be ahead of the live video, even though the lyrics are spot on with real life. So, and Simeon says, thank you. Well, you're welcome. Remember, everyone, Church Tech U, free for 2 months. I'd love to see you on the inside, and we can dive even deeper into some of this stuff, and stuff that I didn't have time to cover, because my Pro 7 live class, when I go through everything I know about ProPresenter 7, it's about 11 hours. And you don't have to digest that all at once, of course. We can, a few minutes here, a few minutes there, you know, an hour here, whatever. And because it's my hope that everyone as part of my community could be a ProPresenter and church tech expert. It actually bugs me that I know stuff that churches need that they don't know. So that's why I do this, to share this information with everyone. Matthew says, I've just seen this on Facebook and jumped in. I missed the first section. Will this be available to watch from the beginning somewhere? Yes. Once we're done, Zoom takes the recording and processes it. I will download it. I will chop off the beginning and end. Then I'll upload it. And for everyone that registered for this, I will email you a copy. And I will answer that one question about YouTube video that YouTube doesn't like me to answer. I'll do that as well. Maxwell's asking another question. If we take all the inputs, CAM, ProPresenter to the ATEM, and then output back to the same computer as ProPresenter with OBS, do you think the computer will be able to handle all that without a problem? Well, if right now the computer can capture video directly to OBS while playing ProPresenter, then yes, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other to the computer. It doesn't care what the video is that's being captured into OBS. So you're just doing some of the heavy lifting with the video switcher. So it should be cool to do that. Can I run ProPresenter for my church live remote? Oh, sorry, let me ask that again. Can I run ProPresenter 7 for my church live remotely? I have a chronic condition. Yeah. It depends on what you mean by live. So if you were doing if they're sending you the video during this time where people aren't in the thing, and you do that live, you could absolutely do that. If you're creating presentations and using virtual desktop software or something like that, TeamViewer or something like that, then you can do that. Over the internet, there will be some latency, so it might be difficult to keep up with song lyrics remotely. That's my concern. Now, I can imagine a situation where you've got a blazing fast connection on both ends and that latency is kind of minimal. And maybe hey, I'm just going to change this, 4 or 5 words before I need to, and that does it every time. But I think the latency of the internet is the determining factor in that situation. Anyone else? Peter, you're welcome. I'm happy to do that. Kristen, you're welcome. I'm happy. Aaron, you're welcome. Maxwell, you're welcome as well. So everyone is welcome, and I'm happy to have done this. I hope you learned something, and I hope that what you do this Easter is better because of this free training. And if you want to take it up another level, don't forget about churchtechu.com. Okay, so with all that said, I'm going to go ahead and close this out, and I will save it for later and get you a copy of it all once we're done. One more time, that's the web address, churchtechu.com, to get that offer. And if it's not right for you, it's not right for you. And I don't feel bad about that whatsoever. And if it is, I hope you'll take advantage of it, because this 2-month free thing, I've never really done that before, and I'm not planning on doing it again. But these are odd times. I'd rather help more churches and not make as much money than not help churches that I could help. So that's why I'm doing that. Okay, talk to you later, and I'll be sending this out soon.